Σε όλους τους βασικούς αρχαιολογικούς χώρους της Αιγύπτου γίνεται σχεδόν καθημερινά κατά τις βραδινές ώρες ένα εντυπωσιακό σόου με προβαλλόμενες εικόνες επάνω στα μνημεία που συνοδεύεται με ηχητική εξιστόρηση της διαχρονικής ιστορίας του συγκεκριμένου χώρου. Η εντυπωσιακή παράσταση κρατάει περίπου μία ώρα και επαναλαμβάνεται κατά τη διάρκεια της νύχτας σε διαφορετικές γλώσσες με βασική τα αγγλικά για κάθε ημέρα. Η εντυπωσιακή εμπειρία ξεκινά στην είσοδο του ναού, στην οδό των Κρυοσφυγγών, όπου από τα ηχεία ακούγονται οι φαραώ να μας καλωσορίζουν στο ναό με τις υποβλητικές φωνές τους, υπό τον ήχο αρχαίων Αιγυπτιακών οργάνων και την προβολή εντυπωσιακών εικόνων. Στη συνέχεια, με τη βοήθεια των φυλάκων του ναού με τη χρήση φακών, η ξενάγηση συνεχίζεται στη Μεγάλη Αυλή, όπου οι φαραώ που συνέβαλαν στη δημιουργία των μνημείων που βρίσκονται εκεί διηγούνται τις ιστορίες τους. Αφού επικρατήσει πάλι απόλυτο σκοτάδι, η μυστικιστική πορεία μας φέρνει στη μεγάλη υπόστηλη αίθουσα, όπου πλήθος εικόνων προβάλλονται στις γιγαντιαίες κολόνες, ενώ στο τέλος ένα λαμπρό κόκκινο φως δείχνει την είσοδο του ιερού των ιερών. Στη συνέχεια η ξενάγηση, αφού περάσει σχεδόν όλο το σκοτεινό αρχαιολογικό χώρο που φωτίζεται σε συγκεκριμένα σημεία ώστε να συνεχίζει και να τονίζει τη μυσταγωγία, η τελετή καταλήγει στο αμφιθέατρο στην πάνω πλευρά της Ιερής Λίμνης. Από εκεί, έχοντας πανοραμική θέα όλο του αρχαιολογικού χώρου, η εξιστόρηση συνεχίζεται ακολουθώντας χρονικά την πορεία τους στους αιώνες, ενώ ταυτόχρονα όλα τα μνημεία φωτίζονται με εντυπωσιακές αναλογίες χρωμάτων και ήχων και το σόου κορυφώνεται, αφήνοντας σε όλους ένα δέος από τη μοναδική νυχτερινή εμπειρία. Κλείστε τα φώτα, δυναμώστε την ένταση, ενεργοποιήστε τους υπότιτλους και απολαύστε το σόου.
May the evening soothe and welcome you, O travelers from Upper Egypt.
You will travel no further because you are come. Here you are at the beginning of time.
Here was conceived and lived the great week of the creation of the world and the separation of the earth from the waters. You are at the house of the Father.
Each added, superimposed, overdid, outdid, through a span of 20 centuries.
The result is this fabulous labyrinth of facades and passages, esplanades and corridors, perspectives and detours, to which only priests and pharaoh had access.
But the Egyptian is at ease in the circumvolutions of the divine. He is at home with the science of the beyond. He has a taste for side exits, secret passages, concealed staircases, the phosphorescent gloom of tombs. The vade-mecums, the guidebooks for the journey which accompanied the mummy, are called Book of the Dead, Book of the Gateways, Book of the caverns, book of the night. They are the only books ever to attempt to produce maps of the other world.
The solemn threshold you have just crossed was forbidden to common mortals.
The city of God was a fortress where a whole garrison of mystic votaries watched over the great divine scheme of things. Sunrises, eclipses of the moon, dynastic chains, the bark of night, the balms of immortality.
Hear me, I who am merely the surveyor of these ruins. I have measured these crumbling avenues in every direction, these tumbled esplanades, these terraces, and these sanctuaries. I found the ancient flood peaks of the Nile, inscribed on a scale which it's only fitting to call Nilometer. These masses of symmetrical architecture that frame the stairs, masking the inner temples, were called pylons by the first visiting travelers. It is a name to describe a pillar on a gigantic scale. Most of these pylons are hollow, honeycombed with inner stairways leading to the ramparts of heaven. These pylons have exterior sockets into which festive banners were fixed with hooks of bronze. But don't try to count the columns, the colossi, the sphinxes, the obelisks, or the capitals. Try rather with every step you take in this 20th-century-old worksite to hear the whispered response of the ever-present God.
For this land of Upper Egypt, upon which the most grandiose structure of the world rises, this land is said to have been the first to have risen from the primeval waters. And it was upon this land, where the swarms of wild duck alighted, the only land above the floodwaters, that men have built the city of God to the glory of his creation.
not be overwhelmed by the sheer size of these ruins.
The citadel that arose here was not designed on the scale of men, but on the grand scale of God, from whom all things flowed. The drought and the flood, the granaries and the plagues, dreams and power, death and survival.
The great French archaeologist Champollion, who had awakened the cackling, twittering farmyard of the hieroglyphics rather in the manner of the Sleeping Beauty, when he came here, was amazed. Listen.
All the pomp and magnificence of the pharaohs appears at Karnak. No other ancient people has conceived the art of sublime a scale as the ancient Egyptians. They thought in terms of men 100 feet in stature.
And if one of you this evening were to voice the question that you are whispering in your hearts, who art thou, Ammon? The answer would seep from these walls, these lintels, these pedestals, these secret chambers, these piled ruins. For the answer is written everywhere in 1,000 different hieroglyphics.
I opened my mouth to speak in the midst of silence. I caused to be that men should have a path on which to tread. I opened the eyes of all that they might see. My left eye is the night, and the waters of the Nile spurt from my sandals.
Ammon has held this fortress from the 12th dynasty, but with one eclipse, the time of a dissenting pharaoh, the time of a pharaoh who was a poet, the time of Akhenaten, who invented humanism, the time of his love for the all-too-human Nefertiti, whose beauty still haunts us even today.
Here in this place, I, Seti, built the resting place for the holy barks beside the avenue. It is made up of 3 contiguous sandstone chapels. The chapel of Ammon's bark is in the center. The chapel of Hones is to the east. The chapel of Mut to the west. I believe this edifice is worthy of Ammon, and worthy long to bear witness to the glory of Seti II.
I, Ramesses III, conceived that more than one resting place was needed for the sacred barks of the Holy Family. So, midway between the sanctuary and the river, I brought into being this edifice, a veritable temple with pylon guarded by colossi, peristyle courtyard, pillared hall, and sanctuary. Henceforth, it shall be here that the 40 tonsured priests in 8 ranks of 5 shall halt, bearing the ark of God along the way to the landing stage when the time comes for the gods' journey to Luxor, for the festival of Opet upon the high waters. And my temple shall also tell how I conquered the peoples of Asia and Africa.
Youthful pharaoh who re-established Ammon in all his power and glory after the treachery of my brother. I have left behind me in this courtyard nothing but this calcite sphinx.
I, Taharqa, a Nubian reigning late in a crumbling dynasty, built this central pavilion, of which little now remains, but a specimen of the papyrus-capped gracious colonnade, and an alabaster block that served as an altar for the divine ark.
I, a pharaoh whose name is lost, so many contradictions are graven on my pedestal. I left the symbolic image of all the pharaohs, this gigantic statue rising against the western side of the second pylon, clasping to its legs the tiny figure of a beloved queen.
And I, Ramesses II, the grand elder of the Ramessid dynasty, the flame of the 19th dynasty, I claim the honor more than 3,000 years ago of having completed this second pylon you are about to pass. At its foot, I placed the stela telling of the victory of Kamoses
over the Hyksos from the east. Two of my images watched over the gate of the sanctuary. Only the southern statue has remained intact, but it is enough to keep alive the memory of my august reign. For 67 years, I wore the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. 3 royal queens shared my bed. The third was the daughter of the Hittite king, the most powerful monarch of Asia Minor. You may measure the vastness of my empire, but to judge the span of my life, know that after her I married 4 of my own daughters, and that the number of my children was 92 boys and 106 girls.
I, a pharaoh of the later period, a king of the twilight, Ptolemy Euergetes II. I built this marvelous gate leading to the chambers of God. The panels are of genuine cedar of the Lebanon, lined with Asian copper. May they open to you this evening and give you access to the most secret, most impressive part of the Karnak labyrinth.
Lofty and mysterious as a petrified oasis, this is the dwelling of Ammon. These are the mighty stone organ pipes of Karnak.
Let's listen a while to the confused hubbub of words that seem to seep from these walls, thick with the inscriptions of signatures and prayers. Let's dream in this forest of symbols.
No one could express our wonder better than the great French Egyptologist Champollion, when he himself came here.
Imagination fails and falls lifeless at the feet of these 134 columns of the Karnak hypostyle chamber.
The columns are all inspired by the umbelliferous papyrus of the river, which brought to Egypt both its grace and its knowledge. Some of the columns are open, that is to say, their capitals are open, while others are closed, like the flowers in the bud. The hypostyle chamber was built by Seti I between the 2nd and 3rd pylons, and he decorated a large part of the walls and columns with reliefs. The decoration was completed by Ramesses II, who used not reliefs this time, but sunken reliefs. This hypostyle chamber is the mother of all the 3 nave basilicas which later were inspired by his plans.
Let's admire this cluster of columns, in which the architect has striven to capture the very sap of the Nile in the stone. That sap that feeds the giant papyrus clumps, springing from the rich silt, swarming with birds and reptiles. The Nile, so like the Egyptian language, with its poetic vitality flowering even beyond the boundaries of death.
It is dawn, and we can imagine the daily awakening of Egypt, as if her hieroglyphics were suddenly to shake themselves from slumber.
In the depths of the sanctuary, Amun the god, the creator, is present in the form of his statue. There is the ceremonial for the opening of his mouth, for the mouth orders both men and events. There are polishings, fumigations, repeated anointings, touchings of the face with a fork of silex and an adze, blessing the hoof of an ox. All these solemn rites have literally incorporated the soul of Amun in its receptacle of sculptured wood.
Pharaoh came into the divine presence this morning. He purified himself in the waters of the sacred lake. He will proceed to awaken the god with his retinue of priests. For the god is still sleeping, as every night, in his tabernacle that is sealed every evening.
hast thrown open the horizons and brought all the gods into being.
Thou who givest the breath of life to all things, and instillest joy into the hearts of men.
Here is the white bondo.
Here is the green bondo.
Here is the red bondo.